My name is Dustin. This is Dusty Ohio Video Productions, and today we'll be talking about robot dreams. Roll intro. Robot Dreams is an animated film directed by Pablo Berger. It is based on the picture book of the same name, written by Sara Varon. The film follows the simply named Dog. Dog is living in his 1980s New York apartment and he's quite lonely. He sees an ad on television for a build-your-own robot kit and decides to order it to have himself a companion. This companion goes by the name Robot. Like I said, simple names, I like it. Robot and Dog form a bond that's similar to how a human forms a bond with their pet. They form it quickly, and they begin to spend a lot of time together and then quickly become friends. However, this is soon soured when they go to the beach on a certain Labor Day. Robot goes for a swim, and his joints begin to rust and freeze up. He becomes immobile on the beach, and while Dog does try to drag the robot away, the metal man just weighs too much for him. So Dog leaves in order to search for tools to repair his friend. Upon returning to the beach, he sees that it is closed for the season, which in the film's time translates to about a year. This is where the film's title comes into play, as Robot begins to have dreams of his friend, and as they go on, they get more and more sinister. That was a rather long explanation for a film that's relatively short. It runs about an hour and 40 minutes. However, there is a lot going on in this film. As I mentioned before, it could be looked at as a metaphor for how humans treat their pets, especially with Robot being left on the beach. You could interpret that to be how certain people leave their pets behind on the street, which I don't understand, but there's people who do it. You could look at it that way. However, I also think the film serves as an interpretation or a metaphor of how a child loses their innocence. Robot, when he starts off, he's being introduced to the world and he only sees happy things. The first inkling he has of something not being right in the world, and the first time he frowns in the film, is when he sees another robot being harassed and sort of beaten up on by a small child. Otherwise, Robot walks around with a happy smile on his face. He's happy to be with his friend Dog. Dog, I also think, serves as a parental figure in the film. He created Robot, he put him together, and he's introducing him to all these fun things in the world. He takes him to walk in the park, he takes him to the beach, he takes him to the amusement park, he gives him carny food, all that stuff. He's showing him a good time. However, when Dog leaves him on the beach and he's unable to come back, Robot learns that his parental figure is not in fact perfect and is not in fact Superman, which I think a lot of children go through. Robot Dreams, I think, is catered to a younger audience. However, the theater I went to only had adults in it, so I'm not really sure. But there's nothing really in it that's super offensive. There's one joke that seemed out of place for the rest of the film where these animated ducks flip off the camera. I'm not even sure you could classify it as flipping off the camera because they have 4 fingers and not 5. So I'm not really sure, but if you're taking your kid to see it, you should probably be aware. I didn't catch anything else, but I just thought that was worth mentioning as this is marketed more towards children. For being marketed as a children's film, it is very intelligent in that regard. It doesn't have poop jokes, it doesn't have fart jokes, it doesn't have pee jokes, it doesn't have screeching characters. In fact, it has no dialogue at all except for some beeps and boops from the robot and some grunts of affirmation from other characters. In this regard, the film is very similar to the animated series Shaun the Sheep or Mr. Bean, just using the characters' mannerisms and facial cues to explain their emotions in each scene. It's handled very, very well. Sometimes the emotions have to be over the top to convey the meaning, like a 1920s silent film, but it doesn't break the mood. It works for this film. The animation style of Robot Dreams is very simplistic, but it makes up for this with shot composition that's actually very, very interesting. What the film does in various scenes is allow the actual stuff that moves the plot forward to happen in the background and put some interesting scenery in the foreground. And it takes scenes that would be relatively flat and bland otherwise and makes them more interesting. It counteracts the rather bland art style. I'm not sure if this was flash animation or not, but it does look like it. And that little touch really adds a lot of depth to each scene and makes it stand out, makes it feel more like something special and not just like a cartoon that would air on Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon or something along those lines. It feels more unique because of that shot composition. It also goes back to the film being respectful and intelligent of the audience. They trust the audience enough to figure out what's going on, even though it's not blatant and in your face and in the foreground. It's going on in the background. I really appreciated that aspect. I appreciated that they didn't take the audience's intelligence for granted and felt that they could figure it out. That was nice. Robot Dreams is a film that I imagine would play well to really any audience. As I mentioned, I saw it in a theater full of adults. I'm an adult. I liked it. I thought it was superb in how it handled the emotional elements. It's happy when it wants to be. It's funny when it wants to be. But it can deliver that emotional gut punch when it needs to as well. And this is all done, again, without dialogue. And in that aspect, it's handled really, really well. However, I do think there is a special group that would appreciate it more. I do think this film would play really well to children that just learned the world isn't perfect and is full of fallible human beings. I think it would help them to cope with that and to come to terms with that. I had films that helped me along those lines when I was younger, and I think this could serve to that purpose, especially if their parent just did something that made them escape the idolatry that comes with early childhood of your parent. I do think Robot Dreams is worth seeing. I think it's a very good film. Last thing I'd like to mention before I say goodbye is the music. The original score and the licensed tracks are both great. They're both used perfectly throughout the film. There's times when the scenes are synced to it, which I always am a huge fan of, and that aspect was fantastic, and it kind of had to be considering the film doesn't have any dialogue, but regardless, it was handled very, very well. Anyway, I recommend this one. I am going to be signing off. Like, share, and subscribe. You know the drill. This is Dusty Ohio Video Productions. My name is Dustin. Later.